After the first waves of rock and roll, and before the arrival of punk, British music got a little gorgeous and a lot sexy.
You know what I mean.
Bryan Ferry was the son of a coal miner. He studied fine art at college, put on sequins and makeup, and launched an entirely new wave of music. With a young but already innovative composer Brian Eno, together they were the creators of glam rock and Roxy music.
I tried, but I could not find me.
Ferry has made as much music on his own as he ever has with Roxy Music, and he's lived the kind of glamorous and cultured life that goes with the album covers. He collects art and owns fine homes and has spent a fair bit of time with the most beautiful women of his era. Up close, you might think he could be too cool for school, but I was delighted to meet a warm and disarmingly open man who does not look his age. And I've got the photo to prove it. Tonight on Artscape, the always suave Bryan Ferry. Bryan Ferry, great to meet you. Thanks for joining us.
It's very nice to be here, thank you.
One of the best observations about Roxy Music that I ever heard actually came from you quite a number of years ago, where you said other bands wanted to wreck hotel rooms, Roxy Music wanted to redecorate them.
Actually, it was a quip from a friend of mine who is actually a very famous decorator in England called Nicky Haslam. I think that was his, it originated from him, and he's probably quite true about it actually, because we never really went in for chucking TVs out of windows or anything.
But for you, it's always been art and music, hasn't it?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. Music from a very early age, I mean, from the age of 10. And I remember, starting, to be obsessed, as young boys are, about something, and it was music for me.
And back then, at 10, what was the music then that was in your head?
The first music was kind of jazz and blues. And I guess I really wanted to listen to stuff that nobody else listened to. And I was kind of very much taken by the blues singers that I heard. I must have been about 55, when they started playing that kind of music on the radio in England, on specialist programs, And then that quickly led into jazz, and I started kind of, it's quite an adventure, getting into music, and one piece of music leads to another person, and you find out about them. And so, and I used to go to lots of concerts from that age as well. Amazing.
I'm not surprised that you weren't doing any chucking of TVs or really anything at all, because you've always seemed such a calm and level and together person. Has it always been that way through your life and from an early age?
I'm far from that, really. It's all terrible facade. No,
well,
I think
I
think if you're a singer, you're dealing with emotions all the time. If you're a musician who writes stuff, and I'm afraid I'm quite emotional, hot and cold kind of person, but I try to keep it calm on the surface.
Let's talk about those early days a bit if we can. What bearing did the austerity of your background growing up in Newcastle have on you and the interests you developed?
Oh, very important actually. I wouldn't really trade it for anything. My background, it was kind of hard in the sense that we didn't have luxuries, didn't have a telephone even, or a car, or a fridge, or anything like that. And my dad was from a kind of very big family. I think he had about 8 brothers and sisters, and I think they all slept in the same bed. And an old farm that didn't have electricity, and they had to break the ice and the tub in the morning. It was amazing stories. And my mother was from the Pit village, which was, I guess, about 3 miles away, but it could have been, the other side of the world. She was a town girl, and he was very much a country boy. And he started off working on the farm, as a farm labourer, ploughman, really. I mean, he's very proud of his ploughing medals with 4 horses in a line, that kind of thing. It was very Thomas Hardy, and he used to go and court my mother, apparently, on a farm horse, a plough horse, bowler hat and spats, and a sprig of lavender or something in his coat.
There's a stylish gene in the family.
Yeah, very much so. And then And my mother, I think, was a bit embarrassed by this country yokel. But anyway, they were together all their lives. It was amazing. So I had a very solid background, although no money. They were quite amazed when I was at school. I did pretty well at school. I mean, I was luckily a bright spark at school. But I suddenly found myself, veering towards art as the subject I really wanted to do. And they were pretty amazed by that. So, what do you want to do that for,
Did they try and talk you out of it?
Not a great deal. No, my dad wasn't very keen. But my mother, I think she had faith. She had faith with a capital F. And when I was at university, later I said, I think I'm going to actually be a musician. Then they got really worried. But I graduated after 4 years at Newcastle, which was quite a life-changing experience going there, of course.
Let me keep you there at Newcastle University for a while, because not many people might know that there was these two strong seams of art and music in your life. Was it ever a battle for you? One?
All the time I was at college, it became a kind of a battle, really, that what should I do? And because in my first and second years, I put together a band, which was really quite good, and they dropped out of college and became a professional band of musicians and made records, and I didn't. I sort of really felt I wanted to go through the whole art course, really, and I did that.
Were your works? Did you think your works were any good at that stage?
I thought I was potentially good, but I never really latched onto a style of my own, really. I think when you're an art student, you're kind of constantly changing as you have a go. Well, I had at school before I went to university a kind of Francis Bacon period. Then first of all, I was very taken by left bank of Paris and bohemian lifestyles and all that kind of thing, like La Boheme kind of thing.
Sure.
But as soon as I got to Newcastle, or slightly before that, I started veering towards pop art.
I suspect that another thing that a lot of people don't know about you is that you worked in a tailor shop in Newcastle as well.
I did all sorts, really. Cause,
now, of course, we'll grasp onto this story because, we look at the sartorial Bryan Ferry and think, there must have been a spark somewhere in there.
If I've let you down today, it's my travelling outfit. I used to work Saturdays in a tailor shop to make money to buy records or, whatever indulgences that I, wanted to invest in. And, it was fun to do that.
What did you learn from that?
I learned all about clothes. It was interesting. I used to kind of do different things there. I'd take measurements of people and try and advise them on their styling. I didn't know much about it at first, but I soon picked it up. I've kind of, over the years, veered towards more kind of classic clothes, really. Yeah, I did have a leather trouser period, but it's...
I remember that period.
Yeah.
And the colour red comes to mind as well.
Yeah.
Let's talk about those Roxy Music years. I've seen, as many of us have, that wonderful ad that you placed for a guitarist. There were about 25 adjectives, I think, in that ad. There was elegant, tricky, witty, and the like. That was who you wanted with Brian Eno, of course, and Andy McKay and Paul Thompson. What was avant-garde to you back then?
I don't know. I really wanted to express myself in some form or other, and music. I wasn't sure that I had the skill to do that at first, and so I was, painting pictures, whatever, and then, but the lure of music was incredibly strong, and I knew I could kind of sing a bit, and I hadn't had any formal tuition in terms of piano, so I started kind of messing around with chords on a piano, and I suddenly found I could kind of actually write very basic songs, and that was really the way in. And so the first songs came out one by one, and I started really looking around for people to work with.
And you had an amazing bunch of musicians, and you appear on Top of the Pops with Virginia Plain. There is that sound.
Take the big time.
Virginia Playing was kind of the start of the interesting lyrics, I think. And I loved having all these different colours to write for and say, oh, great, we can have this. And then, can distress that and so on and so forth. So it was a kind of limitless palette, really, compared with most bands.
And the look, the style, where did that come from?
That was a really... Obviously, I was very interested in how things would look, but I didn't quite know what to do until I met Anthony Price, who was a contemporary of ours and is still a wonderful designer. And he helped me do the first album cover and dressed me, dressed the girl, and helped me art direct the whole thing. I thought it'd be good to have a kind of glamorous cover for this music.
The look was fantastic, and looking back at the early videos or the performances were terrific. And you guys love your feathers and your sequins, I think, far too much. Brian Eno in particular.
Bits of art, they were beautiful. Anthony's clothes were kind of part retro, part futuristic, so it was quite an interesting mix. And of course, all the clothes were copied immediately by all the kind of glam rock bands that came up. So I moved into a kind of white tuxedo the next year, and then all kinds of different sort of suits that Anthony would design for me.
This was all, of course, way before MTV and even the 80s and the money that was around to...
Sadly.
Yes, to help with that look and to help with those
But maybe that made
videos.
us try harder. Maybe that's a good thing.
What was the spark, the dynamic of your relationship between you and Brian Eno musically? What was that thing?
Well, we both got on very well. We both had we had a good sense of humour, rapport between us. We were always laughing. I mean, I used to make him laugh quite a lot. And he appreciated my wit. And I thought he was such an interesting character, and still is.
Do you wish that he had stayed longer with Roxy Music?
In retrospect, I think it would have been interesting, but and to his credit, he always says that his favourite Roxy album was the third album, which was
after he left.
But now I wish he could have played on Mother of Pearl. I think that would have been wonderful if he could. Maybe it would be an idea to give him our tapes and then say, hey, what would you have done?
Another musical relationship that I'm really keen to talk to you about is one that just seems to run like a seam of gold through your life, and that's with Bob Dylan. His music has meant the world to you, it seems.
Well, yeah, I mean, I like intelligent lyrics, and obviously in the past, Frank Sinatra wasn't a songwriter, neither was Elvis Presley, and neither was Bing Crosby, the three greatest singers of the 20th century and the most popular ones. So I thought, well, let's make a record like that where you just choose great songs. And I thought, well, let's try and make it interesting and show some of the kind of influences that I've had so far in my brief career up to that point. And so I took a song from Bob Dylan, who I thought was really good, called Hard Rain's Gonna Fall. That was the first single. And we just did that record so quickly and with, I don't know, such a great spirit.
Oh, where have you been, my blue-eyed son? Where have you been, my darling young one? I've stumbled on the side of 12 misty mountains, walked and I've crawled on 6 crooked highways, stepped in the middle of 7 sad forests, been out in front of a dozen dead oceans. I've been 10,000 miles in the mother graveyard. It's a hard, and it's a hard, and it's a hard, and it's a hard, and it's a hard rain are gonna fall.
Your relationship with the cover song with some other people's music is lovely. You call them your ready-mades,
Well,
a reference to Duchamp.
Fanciful kind of art world. It's interesting how if you take something out of context and do something, you can change it quite remarkably. You know?
But it's clearly a very rewarding thing for you because you're enjoying a well-written song, but in every single instance completely owning it. I mean, you take Jealous Guy away from Lennon.
Now, the really good version, though, is Donny Hathaway. You should hear that. Really beautifully sung. I mean, Donny Hathaway was one of the great soul singers.
And I'm sorry I made you cry.
You put some desire and some strength back into that song.
Well, we did quite a good arrangement, and it was quite interesting that it was the week after John Lennon had died, and we were due to play a big concert in Dortmund in Germany, and we thought, oh well, let's do something special. And a song that I thought was undervalued, it hadn't been so so well known, was "Jealous Guy," and it was. The audience went mad, it was really great.
I began to lose control. I began to lose control. I didn't mean to hurt you. I'm sorry that I made you cry. I didn't mean to hurt you. I'm just a jealous guy.
All right, so now the really important question that I've always wanted to ask. So did you take complete control of the album covers, the design, the way they looked, during the Roxy Music period, just so you could date every working model of the 70s and 80s?
I thought it was a cunning strategy, yeah. No, I did like glamour, and I thought that that having a glamour girl on the first cover worked so incredibly well. It seemed to fit with the music. I guess the same energy that was writing the songs was doing that. So maybe there's no surprise that it did fit. And then the second cover, I thought, well, let's do another girl but in a different kind of situation. And of course, Anthony Price, who was egging me on, sort of loved it, because it gave him a chance to indulge his fantasies as well. And we had this really good photographer, Carl Stoker, who was part of our team. Doing things is always part of a teamwork for me. And that's what I like about it, better than the days when I was kind of trying to paint pictures in a very solitary world, miserable, Here you are in the studio or working on a set with people, and it was fun.
And you got a very useful controversy with the cover for Country Life, of course.
Oh, yeah.
With the two German fans.
Yeah, they were...
gorgeous.
Yeah, it was good. It was interesting.
You were having an enormous amount of fun back then, weren't you?
We were, yes. And you should have fun when you're working.
Following the logic of the covers of the 70s and the 80s and all the beautiful models, do we assume then that you got Kate Moss on the cover of Olympia just to date her? I thought I'd evaded that question. No, it returns.
Yeah, Kate, the latest album, Olympia, this time I thought we've got to have somebody really sensational on the cover. And the original Olympia painting, which sprang to mind, which was one of those pictures that you had to study when you were a student, was by Manet in the 1860s in Paris, and it was a cause célèbre.
Yeah, it was a great
scandal. Created a furore. This woman is not nude. She's not a classical nude. She's very naked and very modern, and obviously a lady of the night with a bit of a history. And so I thought Kate would be great for this, and because she, as well as being an incredibly glamorous woman and internationally famous, she has a rock and roll history, and rock and roll kind of bit of a she's a character with it rather edgy, and I thought it was a great combination.
I enjoyed reading recently Keith Richards' autobiography.
Oh, yeah, it was good.
Yeah, had a chance to look at it. And I loved that observation of his. I don't know whether I quite believed it, where he said that he's never been able to put the make on a woman. He's just got to wait for her to come to him.
Join the club, pal.
No, really?
Yeah, it's interesting enough. Always lost for words, really.
And they always,
that's why you come to you. That's why you write songs. It's the kind of like mating call,
And if you wait long enough, they come.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. So they say.
And a tango never knows.
Is it hard to balance life and work?
Well, it has been, because the thing is about music, it's quite all-consuming. And so you spend long hours, you don't want to medal for it, but you spend long hours in quite an obsessive way making records. And then on tour, it's quite a rarefied atmosphere, it's travel, show, travel. And to try and put together a regular life as well, it's sometimes quite tricky. After the Avalon album, I determined that I would, ease off a bit certainly from live performance. And because I've been going non-stop from 72 till 83. And that I'd try and have a bit of a life as well. And I guess raised a family, 4 sons, so it was kind of worthwhile, but I stopped touring for quite a long time. And it's only fairly recently that it's been all kind of been kicking in again.
The most recent album, Olympia, draws in some really interesting younger musicians as well, like Groove Armada and the Scissor Sisters. How did that come about for you?
Well, you'll meet people in your travels, of course, and I spent a bit of time in Ibiza and became aware of Groove Armada and met them through a friend. A lot of really young lads on the record, which is important because it's like 2 of my sons got very involved in the record. Isaac, who also helped put together the cover with Kate Moss and so on. And he's on tour with me, kind of organising visual stuff, etc. And Tara, who plays drums on the record, he's on this tour as well.
It must be enormously energising knowing that there's a good generation of younger musicians out
clones.
there. Are they?
Yeah. There's method in my madness. No, it's great to have young energy.
And Brian Eno returns, and he made this wonderful observation where he said, atomically, it felt absolutely identical to 35 years ago. Not an atom had changed.
It's a funny observation. And
is that how you felt too?
Yeah, he was absolutely right. Yeah, it was. And that felt like, one day when we were all there at the same time. Generally, we make records now in a more fragmented way. But that was funny that day. It was a real flashback.
You said once that you're not greeted as their son when you head back to the north of England where you came from, those lands, those places. Do you feel that you are now, or if you're not, would you like to be? Well,
I mean, what's that saying? You can take the boy out of the north, but you can't take the north out of the boy. It's very true. And that's the same for anybody who comes from an area which is quite well defined, And I think there's always an element that people think, oh, he's gone off and left us here. One felt one had to go to the big city, and not only go to London, you had to go to New York and Paris and just kind of try and make as much of life as you could, But I love going back there, and I love the landscape, especially the borders, the high north, and it's beautiful up there. Wistfully, he said.
Bryan Ferry, a great pleasure having you on the program. Thanks so much.
Thank you.